This meeting is being recorded.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the March 1st. Can't believe it's March Special Education Directors webinar. Give us just 1 second while we get our PowerPoint pulled up, and then we'll get started. Apologize for the delay. We're just working through some issues on our end. Just wanted to let everybody know, sorry, this is Julie Mead, Director of Special Education. I don't know if I said that or not, but now you know for sure. As we get started today, just a heads up, right behind us, about, 4 feet from where we're sitting trying to talk to you today, we have some construction going on in the State Department of Education, and so you may hear some noises, some banging and whatnot. It is not Debbie banging her head on the table. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for your patience on that. Go ahead. So we, as our old friend Charlie would have said, have a packed agenda today. We're going to go through a couple of SDE staff changes. Then we're going to turn it to Dr. Karen Striegel to talk to us about alternate assessment, which is we're right on our heels, and Medicaid school-based services. She'll turn it to Kimberly Shaner from our dispute resolution department for some updates. And Elisa Fuchs will talk to you about some data and reporting. Debbie Smith will talk to us about special populations from GSFR and so on. And then Shannon Dunstan will cover cultivating readers, the pyramid model collaborative, and some early childhood updates. And then we will wrap it up with Lisa Pafelski-Rosa talking about funding and fiscal accountability, and Don Spurlock with some SESTA announcements. So first and saddest news of the day is we are saying goodbye. This is Brenda's last webinar with us. She is going to be here with us through Friday. And we cannot express enough over time how grateful we've been for Brenda and for her service to the State Department of Education, but also to you districts. She is going to be greatly missed. And I would love for you to flood her email inbox with goodbyes and send her all of the love. But you got to do it before Friday, because then it'll probably get forwarded to somebody else. So we just wanted to thank Brenda and take the opportunity to do that as well if you choose to do that. On that note, we were lucky enough to be able to bring somebody on to do a little bit of work with Brenda as she transitions. So we would like to welcome our new administrative assistant, Melissa Knudsen. She's actually transferring over. She's been working here at the State Department of Education in the certification department, and prior to that in the content and curriculum department. We are extremely excited to have her. And from this point on, you need to sort of train your brains to look for an email that says Melissa Knudsen on behalf of Julie Mead, or on behalf of the State Department of Education, and so on. So key into that. You'll be seeing emails starting to come from her very soon. I'll turn it to Dr. Karen Striegel.
Thank you, Julie. So the first thing I want to talk about is, as Julie mentioned, we are on the cusp of the opening of the Alternate Assessment Test Administration. And so there are lots of things connected to preparing for that. The first and maybe the most important thing that I want to say is that teachers need to read and be familiar with the Summative Test Administration Manual, the TAM. The spring 2023 edition has been uploaded to the Idaho portal. And please work with your school test coordinators and with your teachers to be sure they work with school test coordinators, because they need to know what's in the Summative Test Administration Manual. They need training from test coordinators. There are several relevant alternate assessment quick guides that are also posted on the Idaho portal. But it's important to understand, wait a minute, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I'm ahead of myself. So I'll talk about the quick guides in a minute. But we also have the alternate assessment training tests, and those are located on the Idaho portal under the Idaho Alternate Assessment Card. There's an, IDAA training test quick guide. And I hope that teachers will take the time to visit the training test, take their students with them, so everybody's ready for how the test behaves. Again, teachers administering the alternate assessment need to work with their test coordinators. So, all the lovely alternate assessment quick guides are important, but they are not sufficient for an appropriate and successful IDAA test administration. Read the TAM. Did she say read the TAM? She said read the TAM. Did she say work with your test coordinator? Yes, work with your test coordinator. Here is a list of all of the quick guides: learner characteristics inventory, student response check, all of the administration scripts, and the early stopping rule. There's also a quick guide that, we don't really call it a quick guide, that I put together last year, which is called Troubleshooting Common SPED-Related Test Improprieties and IDAA Quick Fixes. This year's version just got posted, hot off the press. It's there today, to help you and teachers and school test coordinators work through and/or avoid these common problems. The next thing I want to talk about is about ISAT accessibility and accommodations. So hopefully by now, everybody's familiar with the usability, accessibility, and accommodations guidelines, the UWAG, which includes all of the accessibility features and accommodations available to students taking the ISAT. In the past, you may have contacted me when you had questions or concerns about test accommodations for the ISAT. I'm not doing that. I'm not the point person for that anymore. So if it's connected to math or science, you need to reach out to Brianna Lynch. If it's about ELA, ISAT, or the IRI, that's Melissa Gravel. Their phone numbers are here. Their email addresses are linked on this slide. And also, I want to talk about the special accommodations request form. There's a link to this. This is when you need to make a request for a student to have an accommodation, so this needs to be connected to a 504 plan or an IEP accommodation that is not allowable under the UWAG. So click next. Right, so I want to talk a little bit about an ASL accommodation. So in the UWAG, what is allowable is the embedded ASL, which is a pop-up window with an interpreter. And we know that that's not perfect. And I was in a virtual conference last week when Smarter Balance was talking about how they're going to improve the embedded ASL. But Smarter Balanced in the UWAG says that it's unadvisable for students to have an ASL interpreter. But we at the State Department recognize that there are some students who need an ASL interpreter, a person to do it for them. So if you have a student who has that need, work with the school test coordinator to submit the special accommodations request form, which asks IEP information, what accommodations a student gets during instruction, why they need an ASL interpreter instead of using the embedded ASL, and those SDE staff consider those requests on an individual basis. They will go to, this goes to Brianna and Marissa, and they come around the corner and poke their head in my office when they have questions about it. So I'm on the fringe of accommodations work for ISAT, but I'm not the point person anymore.
And Karen, just really quickly, I assume folks out there in the world know that ASL is American Sign Language, but in case you didn't know, that's what we're referring to.
Thank you very much, Julie. A few words about IDAA participation reports, the alternate assessment participation reports. You got those either on the 15th or the 16th of February. The alternate assessment participation oversight and support document got revised because there were 2 words I changed, but you know, you got to update it. If you are in the universal category of support, you are done. You don't have to do anything else. But if you're in any of the other categories of support, you need to have attended the mandatory 1% CAC webinar or view the recording, which is available on the Significant Cognitive Disabilities topic page. And, I will be following up with you. You'll get an email from me. Some of you are already emailing me and say, my staff are trained, I viewed the webinar, yay! Continue to do that, but I'll also be following up with Fed directors who are in categories of support other than Universal to just make a personal contact for what it is you need to do and how I can support you. Now, on to Medicaid school-based services. I think there's just one thing. Next Wednesday, the 8th, we have a Medicaid Advisory Committee meeting. 1 to 3 p.m. Mountain Time. If you want to come to the State Department of Education to be a guest, we would love to have you. But you can also participate virtually through Zoom, but you need to pre-register to do that. So the link to pre-register for Zoom is on this slide, but earlier today, the public meeting announcement for the Medicaid Advisory Committee meeting was posted, and you can download the agenda from there. And so when you go to the SPED page, it's the first thing you see. It's a box with the public meeting announcement. So if there are not any questions for me, I'm going to pass it on to Kim.
Thank you, Karen. Hello, everybody. We've been working through our state administrative complaints this year, and it's interesting how there seems to be common threads each year. This year, one of the common threads that's rising to the surface is transition services for students who are 18 to 21 years old. So I just wanted to bring your attention to that. Those complaints that have had those types of issues in them have included concerns about placement for students that age, services, and then implementation of those things that are designated on their IEP. So keep in mind that as students in special education reach the ages of 18 to 21, they are still able to qualify for services. And so keep that in mind and talk to your team about if you have questions about what that means or want ideas, please reach out and we can connect you to people that can support you if you feel like maybe there's an area that you need to improve on in that way. So here is just a description or the definition for you of transition services. So keep in mind that it's about academic and functional achievement, and then all those things at the bottom, related services, community experiences, employment, post-school, adult living objectives, on and on, that you need to be considering for those students. And then just another little bit of, I guess a reminder. I know you've got snow and maybe couldn't get out of your driveway this morning, but it is time to start thinking about ESY and getting your teams together and talking about which students qualify for ESY and what services will need to be provided so that you can plan and not get surprised and bogged down at the end of the school year. My office gets a lot of calls in about a month or two from parents that are a little bit panicky about what's going to happen for the summer. So if we just get a heads up on that and get moving, we can have a smoother transition from the school year to the summer. And I know everybody would love that.
And just as an addition to what Kimberly shared about transition and sort of the trends we're seeing about that, probably the best thing you can do is to remember that at that transition level, at that 18 to 21, absolutely nothing about IDEA requirements change. So the idea of placement and services being determined based on need and being collaborative as an IEP team, those requirements are the same. The requirement for a continuum of services and making sure that you can meet all of the needs that a student might have, that remains the same, and same thing with the transition portion of the IEP and planning for the post-secondary outcomes and so on. So really the best thing you can do if you're wondering like, oh goodness, should we look at that, is ask yourself if you're meeting all of those obligations for your students who are ages 18 to 21, the same as you are for the other students in your district, and that will help you be on track for that. We'll turn to Lisa Fuchs.
All right. So, compliance notifications were sent out regarding indicator 11 and 12, that's child find or the 60-day timeline, and early childhood transition timeline. Now, some of you may have been surprised by receiving a notification, and what I have seen in going through and talking with districts and charters is that the majority of that non-compliance isn't necessarily related to the timeline. Sometimes it's calendaring and that use of that state exception rule, really clearly understanding what timeline is associated with that 5 consecutive school days of break. And then the other issue that we've seen a lot of is related to data and reporting errors. So maybe the consent date was entered in wrong, and so the time frame from initial consent to that eligibility determination becomes lengthened because of an inaccurate date. So just want to remind you that child find is required for all initial eligibility determinations, including those students who are transitioning from infant toddler programs. So those early childhood transitions also feed into that 60-day timeline reporting. So you have to meet both timelines for those students. And especially for those of you who are on 4-day school weeks, I was really surprised by how many we have in the state now. I think it's right around 88 districts and charters in the state who have a 4-day school week. You really want to access the 60-day timeline quick guide. That's going to give you more information as to how that state exception rule, which focuses on 5 consecutive days, school days, out of session before you can apply it, and how weekends relate to that as well. So really go in, use that 60-day timeline quick guide. We're going to be releasing a data and reporting document that's very much closely related to the 60-day timeline quick guide. So here's just a listing of those fields of information that's collected through that IEC or Idaho System for Educational Excellence. That's where all of your district or charter data is uploaded to the state. These are all the fields that are associated for 60-day timeline. And important note, IED sped date is initial determination date. And that's whether the student's eligible or not. We would have a date in there. Also, that notes field, you are strongly encouraged to use it if you have a break. Reminder that 60-day timeline calculation is looking at that date between that consent date or date of receipt of parental consent for initial evaluation and when that student is determined eligible or not eligible. And that eligibility determination and that meeting date may be different. So early childhood transition, what I saw a lot with this one was that eligibility was being determined on or before that student's 3rd birthday, but the IEP meeting date that was listed was not necessarily on or before the student's 3rd birthday. So that IEP date that's listed here is the meeting date. It is not when those services start. And that's very important for doing this date calculation. And there are no state exception rules for early childhood transition. I saw some instances where districts were trying to use the same rules that you see for the 60-day timeline for early childhood transition, it doesn't work. They are not applicable. And here's just reminder, kind of a little bit more of a visual around how we calculate that early childhood transition. It takes into account that initial eligibility date, and when the student's birth date was, and if they are eligible, the IEP meeting date and birth date.
Just a quick clarification, or I guess additional to what Elisa is sharing about that. The confusion seems to come around when we're talking about perhaps a student who might turn 3 in the summertime. So in the middle of July, the requirement is not that the IEP be implemented by the 3rd birthday. The requirement is that the student is determined eligible, and if eligible, that the IEP is developed by the 3rd birthday. So the implementation might not begin until the beginning of the school year, and that's okay. But in order to meet the requirement, what needs to be true is that eligibility has been established and that the IEP has been developed and is ready to implement. So that is the first part of the requirement, and the second part is that in many cases, that's actually happening correctly, but the reporting is reflecting the implementation date in August rather than capturing the date in July when the team actually did do all the things it required. So you have both the actual action and then also the reporting that need to be in line to make sure that you are that you show up compliant in that. And that's where our confusion's been.
Yeah, and for most of those that I've talked to with that instance of really that it's a reporting issue, that review of data and establishing a data process around confirming those dates and when the IEP date actually occurred is what I'm frequently telling folks who have received that early childhood transition compliance notification. Now, switching gears just slightly around our early childhood transition, that ECT app, default access goes directly to whoever is listed as director or designee in those IC uploads through that program context file. You don't know what that is, reach out to your IC person. And if you're supposed to be that, make sure you're listed as that. Sometimes those don't get updated that frequently. Now, if you need access for other staff, say a early childhood teacher, you will need to go through these steps, contact your admin tool user, request the SPED early childhood transition role. They will need the staff's name and their email in order to complete that role assignment. And over to Debbie.
Okay, thank you. So, hi, this is Debbie Smith, and I'm going to talk to you quickly about GSFR. So, once again, we have wrapped up our internal review of all of your special education files. And so just a little history about that. I think this most recent GSFR period and the year prior are the 2 years where we actually followed the same process, where we had that predetermined number of files that you were required to do an internal review of, and then from the list of student files that you reviewed, we picked 2 or 3 based on the results of the prior year's GSFR. So same process this year as was done last year. So, and then here's kind of a quick historical overview of the results of the general supervision file review. So in 22-23, so our most recent one, we reviewed 180 LEAs. You know, that number you can see sort of changes, and the reason for that is we have new charters that are added, and then of course our very, very tiny LEAs, sometimes they don't have any students on their child count, so that's why that number sort of fluctuates from year to year. So this year we did have 35 out of the 180 LEAs that we reviewed that had at least one issue of non-compliance found. So, and then you see the breakdown there. So, overall, 145 LEAs had 3 compliant files. That's one of the better numbers that we've seen historically. I think many of you are taking that opportunity in January to reach out to your SESTA coordinator and get some guidance around how you might be able to provide additional evidence to clear some of those concerns that we found initially. So thank you for that. And so then here we have our historical overview of the actual issues of noncompliance that we're finding, goals and PLAFs being right at the top yet again, and then eligibility criteria being met. You can go through and read those at your leisure at another time, but just making sure that you have great processes around these items. So if you were found out of compliance, the official notification was sent out, and that would have come via the CTT. That's where the email would have come, and it happened on February 14th. But we are encouraging all of you to just log back into the CTT, take a look at the students that the files that were reviewed to make sure that if you didn't get a notification, it says compliant in green next to all those files, and then non-compliant. Just confirm that, you know, we have the systems working the way it should be. So if you would do that for us, that would be greatly appreciated. And then, so the other thing I wanted to make you aware of, if you are an LEA that you've had issues of non-compliance and this was your 3rd consecutive year of non-compliance, or if you have 13 or more issues of non-compliance during this most recent GSFR, you will be required to do some additional technical assistance in an effort to improve your system. So we will be looking at, you know, kind of going into the weeds on exactly what issues of non-compliance were found in your LEA, and then in August you'll be receiving a letter with some specific technical assistance requirements, again, in an effort to improve your practices around the issues of noncompliance that we found. If the tutorial for correcting issues of noncompliance are found on the Idaho Training Clearinghouse under RDA monitoring system. You'll click on that, scroll down to GSFR, and it is step 4, correcting issues of noncompliance. So switching gears just a little bit, found on that same page, RDA monitoring, you're going to scroll one more down from GSFR to LEA determinations. Just wanting to make you aware, I did have the Idaho Training Clearinghouse, thank you, Suka. He changed the layout of this particular page so that it's now a big button, LEA determination requirements and submission link. So easy for you to find. You just click on that. It really steps out each of the levels, 1, 2, 3, and tells you what your requirements are. And then there is a link to submit all of your requirements and assurances. So again, the deadline for that, May 12th, but want to make you aware of it so it doesn't sneak up on you. And then finally, this is just kind of in case you didn't know, on the special education web page, if you click on that and then go to the public reporting page, there is under the general information tab a special education important due dates calendar. I think that's just a really great place for you to go, one-stop shop, to remind you of all of the reporting and important due dates. And there's quite a few of them, you know, now to the end of the school year, the end of June actually. So if you're not familiar with that, go ahead and click on that particular important due date thing and print it out, post it so you don't lose track of all of those important due dates that are coming your way. So that is it from me. Turning it over now to Shannon for some cultivating readers.
Thank you, Debbie. The Cultivating Readers application is open for the 23-24 school year. And so this is a professional development project that ensures that all students have the opportunity to become proficient readers. Through supports of principals and special ed directors, districts identify instructional coaches, and professional development is provided to general ed and special ed teachers. And as a leadership team of all of these people, including parents and families, we work on building the capacity of evidence-based practices to support all readers. We are a full package deal. We provide services to your teachers and your building leadership team. We work with the Idaho Commission for Libraries to support getting books into your school library. We work with the National Center for Improving Literacy on a multi-tiered system of support for reading, and instructional staff work on improving their instruction, which ultimately leads to children being able to read at all tiers of instruction. This professional development package is to support all tiers of instruction within your building, starting at core instruction all the way through special education. So you might be wondering, what's in it for you? Well, first of all, we applied for a grant through the Department of Education called the State Personnel Development Grant, and we were given funds to help support this project through paying teachers for work that is off contract, attending trainings, supporting families to be part of district leadership team. We have used the funds to buy equipment to help teachers self-evaluate their own instruction. We also have mini grants to help train or provide professional development for paraprofessionals within your districts. All of the professional development is grounded in the science of reading, and we utilize reading experts to build your toolkit within your district, both at a systems level, a coaching level, as well as that education or that instructional level that impacts students. We make a difference. We have been doing this project for several years, and our data shows that districts that participate and implement the evidence-based practices with a level of fidelity, they close the reading proficiency gap for those students that are struggling, and a higher percentage of non-struggling readers are proficient in IRI than non-participating districts. You only have to ask your friends. We have just 22 districts around the state. I am more than happy to meet with you and your team. I am more than happy to put you in contact with principals and administrators that are currently in the project so they can give you their feedback on what it's like to be part of the Cultivating Readers project. But our applications, we aim to close on March 31st. If you go to the Idaho Training Clearinghouse, you will find an application. You will also find a recording of a webinar that Kaylee Bunch-Woodson and I did recently to further explain the project. I look forward to hearing from you. And Kaylee, we love her. She's out on maternity leave. So if you have questions, would you please direct them to me? I am going to continue because I have another opportunity. The Idaho Pyramid Collaborative, our applications are open as well. The Idaho Pyramid Collaborative is a multi-year project that works with at the state level, the program level, and the classroom level to implement a framework of social and emotional competencies for our youngest learners. We provide training and coaching. We walk building teams through how to make data decisions based on our 3, 4, and 5-year-olds within programs through a practice-based coaching model. And we use the teacher pyramid observational tool and prevent, teach, reinforce resources to support teachers and students within the project. Next. This is a 3-year project, and it's a 3-year professional development project where teachers and coaches and administrators within school districts, we're also working with Head Start programs and childcare to implement pyramid module practices. Again, it's not a curriculum. It is a framework of, if these things are in place, students will thrive and your challenging behaviors will be decreased. TPOT stands for Teaching Pyramid Observational Tool Training. We offered that to district personnel to help monitor and help teachers implement the pyramid practices. We have created Early Childhood Behavioral Series, which is a PD opportunity that we encourage districts to do in the 2nd year of the project, as well as work with our national experts on Prevent, Teach, Reinforce for young children. And then the 3rd year of the project is about inclusion and behavioral reporting, incident reporting. We provide professional development credit for each of your teachers who complete the training components. It's 1 credit every year as we move through the project. We're very excited. This, if we have time, and Julie, you'll need to tell me, is a video. And it's not very long, and it talks about the Pyramid Collaborative. If Julie thinks we have enough time, I'd love to play it. If not, it is posted on the Idaho Training Clearinghouse under Pyramid Collaborative.
I think we have a minute, Shannon. Go ahead.
Let's click on the slide and play it. Oh, I think you have to not share and share again, hitting the audio button.
Well, let's actually put a pin in it then. I don't want to take more time doing that. I apologize, Shannon. So folks, you can go tell them again where to find it.
It's on the Idaho Training Clearinghouse under the Pyramid Collaborative tab, and it will be right there up to the right. This video will talk you through what the project is about, and there will be an application. Again, we are working to have applications close the first part of April. I just wanted to let you know that this is our collaborative. Our collaborative is with the University of Idaho Center for Disabilities and Human Development, Idaho Training Clearinghouse. We work with childcare through Idaho Stars, Head Start Collab Office, and Head Start programs around the state. We work with Boise State University, the Department of Health and Welfare, Idaho SESTA, and we have national partners as well.
Shannon, I just placed a link to the Idaho Pyramid page in the chat for anyone, and the webinar survey is there too.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Suka. So we do have a website. This is what it looks like. That recording is right there to the left, or I'm sorry, to the right. And it will also give you more information on what is the pyramid model, who uses it, who created it, and how we are implementing. We collect a lot of data and know that the implementation of the framework also is giving us great results in our early childhood special ed and community preschool programs. So if you have any questions, you can contact myself, Shannon Dunston at the State Department of Ed, or Renee Miner at Boise State University, Idaho, SESTA. We co-facilitate this project together. Finally, I'm going to talk about early childhood special education update. I am working to collect information on what early childhood programs are offering to families within their school district. This is seriously a 10-question survey. You click on that survey link and it's going to ask you to identify your district. We are looking to find out who is partnering with Head Start programs, who is partnering potentially with a community preschool program. I'm aware of several communities that have community preschool programs like American Falls and Murtaugh. And we just want to be able to know who's doing what well, who's doing what where, and who's doing it well. So when we get questions on how to set up a community preschool program or other early childhood supports prior to being kindergarten aged eligible, we know how to direct districts. So please take just moments and fill out that survey. Finally, we would like you to save a date on early childhood transition webinar. This time of year, we get many, many questions about transitioning a child to kindergarten, doing the early childhood outcomes. What if a parent wants to retain their child in an early childhood special ed program? This will answer all of your questions. So put it on your calendar, register, and we look forward to seeing you on April 6th.
All right, we'll hand it to Lisa Pafelski-Rosa for our fiscal updates.
All right, everybody, it's that time of year again when we're getting ready to see how much money we're going to have for next year. So many of you are working on your budgets currently with your budget managers or your business directors or business managers. So I kind of wanted to share a little bit of high level across the board estimates and then proposed and then final allocations that went through just recently for 2023. So when you look at these numbers, these are the numbers that are going to affect the actual allocations as a state that we receive come this July. So believe it or not, it's almost time for the new application to open. What I wanted you to notice here, if you look about midway through, you'll see IDEA Part B, and you'll notice that in 2022, there was 13, I think these are in the billions, 0.3, and then we're going up to 16. So if you notice what that means is that we as IDEA are getting approximately a 6.4% boost. When we made it to our final of 14,194. So what all does this mean? Normally, as a state, we get about 1 to 2% of an increase. And you recall in the last couple of years, we received ARPA funds that was very helpful to help us through the pandemic recovery mode. Those were one-time funds, and they'll be dying out this fall. But the good news here is that we believe we will get about a 6% raise. Or increase overall to state level, which means more funding that will get pushed through for you. And that allocation is supposed to be here in the next week or so. Okay, so it's time for maintenance of effort analysis, and never want to lose sight of this. These are just some good questions that you can use to look over, to be meeting with your fiscal office. Am I on track? Do you even know what that is? Is just your business manager trying to maintain this? They can't, because look at that second bullet point. They don't know where you're at with Medicaid billing, in case that's something that you guys use, which most of you do. So what that means is you've got to keep your business office in the loop, like where you're at with those billings. If you're 6 months behind in your billing, which some of you guys are, that's okay. You have a whole year to bill, but your fiscal office needs to know, is it going to happen? Should I be waiting for this money to hit in the summer? All of that's super important because it affects this maintenance of effort, which is your district level of support. All right, so I mentioned earlier that the state application is coming up, so we will have a link that will go out to y'all about public comments. Again, I don't have our application or our allocation as a state yet, but I should be getting it within the next week or so. And then we will open that up for public comment. And then, the preliminary allocations to you guys, I'm hoping should get there in May. And that is when I will open up the new application for funding, which is when you guys, we call it the preliminary, that's when you give me your budget and say, yes, I want the money. And then later on in the summer, you have a chance to shore it all up. And that's what we call the final application. Just letting you know that I am doing a training at the IASBO Business Conference. So it's a business managers conference, here in Boise tomorrow, which I'll be training your business managers on. Most of them go to this. And then I'll be sending out those slides to everyone anyway. But that's for them to help them with, maintenance of effort in Medicaid. And then we're gonna do a Contracts 101 Blue Jeans Conference coming up, and then some other, federal fiscal grants communities of practice that we do monthly on the 21st. And then I'll let you guys know sometime in April when we go through and do an overview of the application itself. That's it for me.
All right, now we'll turn it to sunny Moscow, Idaho, and Don Spurlock.
Well, I wouldn't say sunny, but I'm definitely in Moscow today. Hi, everybody. Just a couple of updates from us. First of all, I wanted to just highlight, as we enter the season of initial referrals and all of the students who've gone through the problem-solving process, and our teams are now considering whether or not special education evaluation is warranted. Please check out the comprehensive evaluation topic page or the quick guide library on Idaho Training Clearinghouse. The website is listed there. There is a referral tab, a consent and evaluation tab, and an eligibility tab. We just want to highlight that we have several quick guides related to this process that you can share with your teams to ensure that they are meeting not only compliance, but also best practices related to these. Next. Shannon shared about the transition to kindergarten webinar that we'll be hosting on April 6th, but I did want to share that the SD and SESTA have been working on updating our quick guide related to early childhood transitions to kindergarten. We have been getting a lot of questions related to when a student becomes kindergarten age eligible and what that means in terms of services. So this was updated as of this week. So if you have this printed off previously or had your preschool teachers print this off, please make sure you provide them with an updated copy of this. There have been some adjustments to the language, and there have been a couple of extra questions and answers added to this. Next, thank you. Comprehensive evaluation. We do have a few spots left in some of these locations. This training will cover all of those questions related to referral, consent, reevaluation, eligibility, all of the things that take place within a comprehensive evaluation. The link is there to register. Our Idaho Falls location and our first Boise location and now our Twin Falls location are all full, but we do have some availability left at these 4 sites. So please register. And then the last thing I wanted to just remind everybody of is if your district or you have a school within your district that is interested in long-term support to make system level changes, click. SESTA offers what we are calling our targeted technical assistance. This type of support from SESTA is a long-term commitment on the part of the district, but SESTA will come to your school or district and do a comprehensive needs assessment. We will work with the team on setting goals based on your priorities and data from that needs assessment, and then setting an action plan that will include ongoing support from us. This can be done related to tiered systems of support. It can be done related to the special education process, instructional practices, what students need for those that are more significantly impacted by their disabilities. There's a wide variety of support we can provide. If you are interested in that, you can go to our help desk request or request assistance button on Idaho TC. You would want to choose long-term support in the first dropdown where it asks what type of support you're looking for. It'll ask you to fill out a short questionnaire that will help our team know what you are looking for. And then one of our coordinators would be in touch to get more information from you. So if you're looking for systems level change at either the building or the district level, we are happy to have a conversation about what that might look like.
All right, thank you, Dawn. This pretty well wraps us up. I do want to add just a couple of quick comments about the Early Childhood Transitions webinar coming up in April. As you heard today, Elisa had a few things related to transition in and out of early childhood. Shannon had some topics. Dawn shared with us a quick guide. And here's what really happens. Every single time we think we have had the hardest possible question about early childhood transitions, either from infant, toddler, or into kindergarten, somebody asks a harder one. And so we really thought, you know, as these complicated questions come in and we do problem solving on our end to make sure we're giving consistent guidance, we decided it would be a good idea to just put together a webinar addressing specifically those things. So we do have an idea of what we need to address, some common questions that we're getting, but please, if you have questions that you would like to have answered that you think might fit in that webinar that we can make sure to address, please feel free to email me or Melissa Knutson, and we'll get some of those questions gathered, and if it's appropriate to include in the webinar, we absolutely will do that. So again, that's April 6th, so of course you'd want to get that to us well in advance, so think that through. Next webinars, April 26th, and then May 24th, same time. And as always, we really love the opportunity to serve and support you in any way we can. Please give us a call or reach out anytime you have a need from us.
And there are no questions at this time.
All right. Thank you for your time. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.